So, welcome back. We will continue talking about special polynomials. So, recall from last time that we introduced what we call the Chebyshev polynomials, which we denoted by Tn of x. And one of the key properties of Tn, so there was a main definition that Tn is essentially it tells you how cos n theta is written as a polynomial in cos theta. That was the main definition we gave of Chebyshev polynomials. But it was also true that was given by recurrence relation, and recall the recurrence was the following. So, Tn plus 1 of x was 2x Tn of x minus Tn minus 1 of x. Okay, and this recurrence was satisfied provided n is at least 1, and we were given some initial conditions. We knew the first two values of t0 was 1 and t1 was x. So, this characterization of the Chebyshev polynomials in terms of a recurrence relation turns out often to be one of the most useful ways of defining other interesting classes of polynomials. So, what we will look at today is another class called the Legendre polynomials. So, let us define these in pretty much the same way using a recurrence. So, we say that so let us define a series of a sequence of polynomials called Pn of x, which we will call the Legendre polynomials. So, the two initial values are the same as in the Chebyshev case, but the recurrence relation is what is different. Now, we will consider the following recurrence: n plus 1 times Pn plus 1 is the same as 2n plus 1 x Pn minus n times Pn minus 1, again holds if n is at least 1. So, it is still what is called a 3-term recurrence. It defines Pn plus 1 in terms of the two preceding terms, but notice that the coefficients now are n plus 1, 2n plus 1, n and so on, as opposed to the Chebyshev case. Okay. So, now let us just compute the first few of these to get a feel for what they look like. So, we already know P0 and P1, so let us put n equals 1 here. So, if you put n equals 1, the equation becomes 2p2. So, I will just suppress the x in the polynomial. So, 2p2 is 3x p1 minus p0. So, meaning p2 of x, p1 x, p0 x. So, this means that, so what is the right hand side? p1 is x and p0 is 1. So, it is 3x squared minus 1. So, there is a 2 here. So, we conclude p2 of x is just half of 3x squared minus 1. Okay. Similarly, we will do, let us put n equals 2 in the recurrence relation. So, we take this equation, put n equals 2, we get 3 times p3 equals 5x p2 minus 2 p1, and again we know we just computed p2 is half of 3x squared minus 1. So, this is 5x times half of 3x squared minus 1, and p1 is of course x, so it is minus 2x, and one needs to simplify this out a little bit, divide by 3 to conclude that p3 of x is therefore just half of 5x cubed minus 3x. Okay, so you will need to do some simplification to see that this is in fact true, and so on. So, let me just write out one more value which you can calculate and check. P4 of x is just 1/8 of 35 x4 minus 30 x squared plus 3. Okay. So, and so on, you can keep doing this, compute P5, P6 and so on. The key properties, so observe one key property of the Pn's which it shares with the Tn's is that these are all polynomials of successively higher and higher degrees. So P0 is a constant, that is a degree 1 polynomial. P1 is x, which is a degree 1 polynomial. P2 is 3x squared minus 1 by 2, a degree 2 fellow. P3 is degree 3, P4 is degree 4, and so on. So the property here is that degree of Pn is exactly n for all n. And observe, this is in fact also true for the Tn's. We also said this as one of the properties of the Chebyshev polynomials, that they are all, Tn has degree n. And this is in fact, so polynomials of this kind are rather useful for the following reason. So here's a remark concerning such polynomials. So observe, we've already constructed two such series. So we have T0, T1, T2 and so on, the Chebyshev polynomials. Then there is P0, P1, P2, the Legendre polynomials. And well, in fact there is also the much simpler version. Let us just look at the polynomials 1, x, x squared, x cubed and so on. So these are all just powers of x. They are also polynomials, one of each degree. Okay. So each of these three sequences has the property that it contains one polynomial of each degree. So consider such sequences. So more generally, suppose I call, so here's the key principle here. Suppose I have a set of polynomials f0 of x, f1 f x and so on, be a sequence of polynomials with degree of fn being n for all n. So then here's what we can do with polynomials like this. Then given any other polynomial or given any polynomial p of x of degree d or less, so let us just say of degree d, then given any polynomial p of x of degree d, we can write the polynomial p as a combination. So let me call it C0 f0 of x plus C1 f1 of x dot and so on all the way till CD fd of x. For some constants, C1 C2. So by constants I mean if you are looking at complex numbers everywhere, then they will be complex numbers. If all your polynomials have real coefficients, then they will be real numbers and so on. So for some constants C0 C1 till CD. Okay, so let us just look at this for a moment. So observe, if I apply this principle to the last series that we wrote down, the polynomials 1x, x squared, x cubed dot dot dot, think of these as being the f0, f1, f2, then this principle here just says that a polynomial of degree d can be written as some constant times 1 plus some constant times x plus some constant times x squared and so on. Well, that is more or less the definition of a polynomial of degree d, right, that it is a certain expression which is of the form something times 1 plus something times x and so on. So when you apply this to just 1x x squared, it is more or less the definition of a polynomial of degree d. What is interesting is when you apply it to other series. So for instance, when you take f0, f1, f2 and so on to be say the Legendre polynomials or the Chebyshev polynomials or many other interesting classes of polynomials, what it says is you can still write the given polynomial p as some combination of the first d elements of that sequence. Okay. So let us just do this by example to get a sense of why this is true. So even a formal proof is rather easy. So let us just take some sequence. So I will just say f0 is 1. Let me take f1 of x to be say 1 plus 2x and so on. So I am just going to keep adding one extra term with say one higher coefficient, and I have just picked an arbitrary sequence here. Observe I have done it in such a way that f0 has degree 0, degree 1, degree 2, degree 3 and so on, right. So it satisfies the conditions of the principle. Now what I want to do is, let us do this by example. Let me take a polynomial p of x to be, so let me just write something down, x cubed plus x squared plus x plus 1. Okay. So maybe I will just do x squared plus x plus 1. So let us even just keep it even simpler. Suppose I take the polynomial x squared plus x plus 1 which has degree 2, and so this principle should say that I should be able to write p purely in terms of f0, f1 and f2 as a linear combination of these three functions. Okay. So how do you do this? How do you write p in terms of these three guys? So there is a very simple algorithm which tells you how to do this. So here is the idea. So observe that, so we try and match coefficient by coefficient starting from the largest. So p of x has coefficient of x squared to be a 1, whereas f2 of x, which is the degree 2 guy, has coefficient 3. Okay. So here is what we will do. From p of x, let us subtract out 1/3 of f2. Okay. Now the idea behind doing this is, when you subtract 1/3 of f2 of x, the coefficient of x squared the x squared term will cancel between these two. Okay. So if you do this, there is only an x term and a constant term. So what is the coefficient of x now? Well, in p it was a 1, now I need to subtract 1 minus 1/3 of 2, so it becomes 1 minus 2 by 3 is the new coefficient of x, plus some constant term. Now what is the new constant? The original was a 1, now I need to subtract a 1 by 3, so that is the new constant. Okay. So this is now basically 1/3 x plus 2/3. Now again I do the same sort of thing. I look at the resulting polynomial. This is now of degree 1 smaller. The original polynomial was degree 2. This, after subtracting out, it is only degree 1. So now I try and match the coefficient of x with the coefficient of x in f1. So this is 1/3, whereas this is a 2. So what I will do is I will divide f1 by a 6. So let us do the following. Let us take p of x minus 1/3 f2 minus 1/6 f1. Okay, so dividing this by a 6 will make this x by 3. So doing this will, what will it do? It will, so let us just write it out fully. X by 3 plus 2 by 3 is what I have, from which I have to subtract out x by 3 plus 1 by 6. Okay, so of course again the idea being you can cancel off the coefficient of x. What is left is 2 by 3 minus 1 by 6. So what is that? That is I guess 4 minus 1, so that is, okay. So we are looking at p of x minus this minus that is just a half, and now it is only a constant, so it is just half of f0. Okay. So this is in fact just half f0. Or to sort of keep doing this once more, you will take p of x. So let us just do the same things, p of x f2 f1 minus half f0, and doing that will make a 0 on the right hand side. Okay. So the conclusion is, so here is what we conclude: the given polynomial p of x is therefore just 1/3 f2 1/3 f2 of x plus 1/6 f1 of x plus half of f0 of x. Okay. So this procedure is more or less the proof in general. If you want to express any given polynomial of degree d, you start from the highest power. I mean, you start from x power d, you match that the coefficient up with the coefficient of x power d in fd, you subtract out an appropriate multiple of fd from p of x. What is left will be of degree 1 smaller, it will be degree d minus 1 or smaller. Again you match the degree d minus 1 term, subtract out an appropriate multiple of fd minus 1, an appropriate multiple of fd minus 2, and so on. And if you keep going, when you finally subtract out all the correct multiples, the final answer is always a 0, okay, which in turn tells you how to write p in terms of these polynomials. Okay. So that is an important principle the other important thing here is that these constants are really unique. So I should also say one further thing, for some unique constants C0, C1, C2 till CD. Okay. So there are no two ways of doing this. If you attempt to write P as a combination in some other way, the constants you get in the new way of writing must actually be the same as the constants you get in the original way. And in fact this proof also shows the same thing. Okay. So this is something that I would like you to think about. Just try and figure out why these constants are really unique, try and give a formal proof. Okay. So that is a nice property of the Legendre polynomials, also of the Chebyshev polynomials. But just like the Chebyshev polynomials had one very important property, that they essentially told you how to write cos n theta in terms of cos theta, so polynomial, right. That is sort of the heart of the Chebyshev definition. Similarly, there is a very important property that the Legendre polynomials have. So here is another property 2 of the Legendre polynomials, and this concerns the integral. So if I take two Legendre polynomials Pn of x and Pm of x and I integrate them, I take the definite integral from -1 to 1, then it turns out that the answer is 0 if n is not equal to m, and you get some non-zero answer, which is 2 divided by 2n plus 1 if n equals m. Okay. Now this is somehow the heart of the key property of the Legendre polynomials. Now let me just remind you what the integral means. Again, it is a notion from calculus, so I am not going to really use it in any very important way here, but recall that the key geometrical definition of the integral is the following. If you are given some function f of x and you are trying to integrate it between two limits, say -1 and 1 in this case, then what this really captures is the area under the curve, the graph of the function between these two values of x, right. So the integral is nothing but the area under the curve, and what this property of the Legendre polynomial says is, if you take two different Legendre polynomials, n is not the same as m, you take two different fellows and you try and compute, you take their product and compute the area is always 0. Okay. By 0 is meant, so how can the area be 0? Well, that can happen if part of the graph is above the x axis and part of the graph is below the x axis. So for instance, a function which has something like this, the area is always what is called the signed area. The area above the x axis is thought of as positive and the area below the x axis is negative. So what it says is, if you draw the graph of Pn of x times Pm of x, the area under the graph which is above the x axis is the same as the area that is under the graph when the part which is under the x axis. So this is sort of an important property of the Legendre polynomials. So sometimes it goes again under the name of orthogonality. So recall we talked about orthogonality, the term orthogonality, when we talked about this whole 0-1 idea in some sense, and this is very similar again. This is quite related to that. So let us just do a simple example where this property of the orthogonality with respect to the integral is useful. So it says the following: find a polynomial of degree let us say of degree at most 2 such that satisfying the following properties. So the conditions are the following: the integral of f of x so let me say the integral of f of x with p0 of x is given to be some number, let us call it a0 or maybe we will call it b0, So again, this is sort of like the problems that we already looked at, the interpolation problem, the Taylor polynomial problem and so on. So what we looked at there was the idea was to try and determine a polynomial of degree d given some d plus 1 conditions, some suitably independent d plus 1 conditions. So here again we are asking for a polynomial of degree which is at most 2, and you are giving 3 conditions, except that the conditions are really in terms of integrals. Okay. So how does one try and solve problems like these? So here is just the initial steps, and why is that orthogonality important? So here is the thing, if you write f of x, a polynomial of degree at most 2 can, according to the principle that we just talked about, observe you can always write it as some combination of p0, p1 and p2. Okay, this just by the principle we just mentioned. So f of x can be written in this way. Now what is given here is the integral of f of x multiplied by some one of the pi. So observe, if I compute integral of f of x with let us say p0 of x between the limits -1 and 1, then that is just the same as doing the integral on this side. So this is like saying I need to compute c0. So observe, the integrals have the following property, you can pull constants out. So this is like p0 multiplied by p0 dx plus c1 times the integral of p1 p0 plus c2 times the integral of p2 p0. Between the same limits, so this is also an x. And now it becomes clear why this orthogonality is important, because what orthogonality says is that the integral of p1 p0, because these are two different Legendre polynomials, and the integral of p2 p0 would both be 0. So in fact both these integrals are actually 0, and this integral here is some known constant, integral of p0 with p0. Well, the answer according to that is 2 divided by 2n plus 1, so it is 2 divided by 1. So this integral is a 2. So what it says is that you get the following equation, integral fx p naught x is the given constant b0, but on the other hand it should be 2 times this scalar to c0. So we conclude b0 is 2 c0, and so you determine c0 from this, c0 therefore becomes b0 divided by 2. Okay. So in essence giving these 3 conditions gives you a way of determining these 3 constants more or less instantly. Okay. You can figure out what c0, c1, c2 are by just multiplying both sides by the corresponding pi and doing the integral. And the key property here really is the orthogonality, that is what really helps you to do this step. Okay. Okay. So this is sort of why Legendre polynomials turn out to be important. They have this very nice orthogonality property with respect to the integral. Okay. So what we will do next time is to talk about some natural counting problems which arise in the context of polynomials.